What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital, and we're here with Michael Williams, Chairman and Director of Aftermath Silver. It's been a while, Mike. Pleasure to have you back on. I'm excited to be chatting today. How are you?
Good, Aaron. It's great to be on. Markets have
Yes,
changed since we last spoke.
I know, right? So,
Yeah.
could you tell us a bit about the company, everything that you've been up to? I know Aftermath's been very active when it comes to the news, so tell us what's new.
Yeah. Well, just to give you a bit of a background and from 10,000 feet, Aftermath is a junior mining development company. We focus on silver, copper, and manganese in Peru and silver in Chile. We've recently put out some good news on the metallurgical front regarding our project in Peru that has serious ramifications going forward. As you well know, and you follow a lot on the critical metal space, manganese is becoming one of the key metals for batteries. And if you look what we have at Barranquilla, coupled with our silver and copper, we certainly what could be one of the most significant deposits out there. So we've been advancing it. We're getting to the point, though, where we're going to do our preliminary economic assessment, which means that we put out all the economic factors associated with Barranquilla, and then we can talk to those post that report being out. But I think it's safe to say, based on what we've seen through our 43-101 report, on what our resource is and the preliminary metallurgical work we've done, things have gone well. And I think we're heading into a market that companies like ours will be at the forefront. If you notice, whenever silver moves, we tend to go up with it. And the reason for that is our silver resource is one of the largest in the development space, certainly on the TSX venture, but probably on a more of a global scale. So we have tremendous leverage to that commodity. Now, we also have an equal amount of value associated with copper. And copper is the metal that a lot of people are focusing on these days with electrification and supply issues going forward. They always say copper has a PhD in economics, meaning that if you see copper start to move up, it's a good sign that the economies are doing well. And that's, in fact, what we're seeing in China. The numbers lately have been very promising, and you're seeing the price of copper move. And it's going to a point where, maybe 350 copper is a thing of the past. And on top of that, we have, as I mentioned, significant manganese, but more importantly, we have potential to produce a product called manganese sulfate, which the battery industry uses, and there's very short supply of battery sulfate manganese. Now, as a product, there's manganese. It's one of the most fruitful products globally, but battery grade manganese sulfate isn't, and we're heading down that road. So no, things have gone well. The stock has improved as of the markets. So yeah, that's a brief view from 10,000 feet, if you will.
Very exciting time for you guys. So, the company recently closed its private
Yeah.
placement, raising significant funds. Could you provide insights into how these funds will be utilized to advance the company's projects and objectives in the near term?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we just raised $3.85 million, and it was just as the market was turning. Our timing was very good on that, not through any anything that we did on purpose, but it was just fortuitous. It started to move as we'd announced that financing. I probably could have raised $10 million. The reason we didn't is we felt that we wanted to mitigate dilution down at these levels, less shares on a financing. We didn't need the capital. So what we're doing with those proceeds, the majority will go towards our preliminary economic assessment, which is the study that demonstrates the economics. It's sort of the first big one that you put out. And then just for some general administrative costs. But I think going forward, people have been waiting for the PEA,
Mhm.
largely for 3 years, and we've been consistent on that messaging. Look, We give us time to come out with it, but when it does, then you'll see what the real valuation of Aftermath should be, good or bad, but we're very positive.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on to discuss that when
Oh,
it does come
absolutely.
out.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, which milestones or developments can investors anticipate in the coming months as Aftermath moves forward with its exploration and development activities?
Okay, well, one thing I should have pointed out is one of the reasons too, we didn't need to do as large of a financing as we could have is we have a lot of warrants at 27 cents and 25 cents that, if this market continues, will be exercised, and that'll put another 5 million in the treasury. One of the things I would like to do, that deposit, Barangila, I'll use a baseball term, I would consider it a home run based on the 43-101 report resource we recently put out. If we find the source of that deposit, in other words, the engine that caused that to be formed, and it's usually they're porphyry deposits, it goes from being a home run to a grand slam. So that's what I would like to use to see if a porphyry is located close to the deposit. And we're seeing indications based on both some geophysical and soils work that there's a chance that there is something there. Now that doesn't always mean it's economic. Sometimes you hit these big deposits and they're too deep to make economic, or there is something there, but it's largely been eroded over millions of years. Hopefully that's not the case here, but we'll find out. We've had indications from other companies they'd like to joint venture that part out with us. I think the risk reward ratio dictates we drill it ourselves. It could vastly change the fortunes of the company and go from something that looks exceedingly good to a world-class deposit overnight with some drilling. So that's something everyone should look forward to.
Mhm.
And we will be putting out further metallurgical news, bearing in mind, Aaron, that if you look at our resource, there's a lot of copper there, manganese and silver. Does it make sense to extend the mine life another 5 to 10 years, or do you focus on getting that into production as quickly as can? I would say the latter. So that's what we'll be doing. So we need to focus on our engineering and metallurgy moving forward, and that's what we'll be doing. But if we're one of those few companies, or luckily enough, that if the commodity moves, and if you believe commodity prices are moving, it's reflected in our share price and valuation. So it's an interesting way to play those commodities. And you if you look at it, what's really exciting is this is where the junior mining market really takes off. It's when we're in these bull markets, when everyone's clamoring for resources, there's supply issues, demand is continuing to increase. We offer, I'll give you an example, and you and I talked off air on this, Bitcoin, which I do like Bitcoin. I like it for a lot of reasons, but gold and precious metals, you get the leverage and the torque because you can see a valuation on a company go up. And I'm not talking about ours, I'm talking in general in the industry, 10, 20. I've had a friend of mine, Great Bear Resources, started off with a 5 million, 6 million valuation. They sold that project for billions. I do not think, and I might be wrong on this, for Bitcoin, what's it trading at today? Is it 76?
Around 60, low 60s, pulled back quite a bit.
Okay, so it's a chasm to go to a
Mhm.
120, right?
Mhm.
That's a big leap. It's
Mhm.
not a big leap in a good market for a mining stock to go from 30 to 60 to $5. Now that's
Mhm.
predicated, granted, on results, but there is a methodology based on science that allows us to get there. And with good companies, good management, in a good market, it's a perfect storm. And I think that's when you see the generalists pile in, and it becomes where we use the saying, the taxi drivers are telling you what junior stock to buy. Maybe that's when you should be selling. But you know what I
So,
mean? which you'll have to give guidance to your followers.
Yes, I think you hit on a very important point. A good project, good management. And I like the fact that Aftermath does move when the price of silver goes up, for
Yeah.
example, because nothing's more frustrating when the price of gold and silver are going up. And let's say you have a couple exploration stocks, but they just don't move. And then you're like, you know,
Well, you're
going
right.
on.
And I'll tell you one thing that's more frustrating is when you're running a company and you're putting out good drill results and you expect you should be re-rated and you're flat because no one's in the sector. Now, I've been in markets where the opposite happens and you put out good drill results and you get a reaction in the market right away, and that's rewarding. I think we're heading towards that market.
Mhm.
Looking at the space, a lot of good companies are getting financed and they're starting to mobilize their projects. So we should see a lot of good news from a lot of good people shortly.
Very much looking forward to that because the last 2 years have felt like great drill results falls on deaf ears and nothing has
Oh,
happened for the
yeah.
most part.
No, you're right. The analogy I like to use it, it's like going home from school at 3 o'clock and every day the bully beats you up, you know. And now there is no bully, but you're kind of looking over your shoulder, seeing if he'll return. I don't think so. I think someone's taking him out. So look, these are the markets I've waited for a long time. I'm close to 30 years in the industry. I've been through some very good markets. In the mid 90s, sort of the China super cycle in the early thousands. But I'd like to think this might dwarf them all.
Hopefully so. I've seen the end of a good cycle, the start of a very difficult one the last couple of years, but I've survived and happy to be here for hopefully the good times ahead. So let's talk about your metallurgical test work. So the company announced metallurgical test work results from its Barangila project, achieving battery-grade manganese sulfate
Right.
monohydrate. How significant are these results in terms of the project's potential and broader market demand for battery materials?
Well, I'll answer your last question first. There appears to be a movement within the electrical vehicle battery industry to lower the cobalt content and replace it with manganese. Now, talking to some people more on the scientific side, there's some properties within manganese that allow the end user to reduce the weight of the battery. And that's one of the key things with an electrical vehicle is the weight of the cars. They're actually a lot heavier than a traditional internal combustion engine. So, that's one of the holy grails is reducing the battery weight because the batteries still use a lot of lead. No, don't make no mistake about it.
Mhm.
The moment you can start reducing that and manganese helps, the better it is. And manganese is infinitely lower priced than cobalt. So it's got an advantage that way. And the third advantage, which is a bit esoteric, but it's still just as important, manganese, if companies can get manganese in places like Peru with us or other areas of North America or Asia, it's a lot better than getting cobalt out of the Congo, which tends to use sources of labor that are uh, how do I say it, not the preferred within the Western world. We do not like to see some of the ways that some of those cobalt companies acquire their product, let's say. Some of the mining method and the people they use and the age of some of those people.
Mhm.
A lot of the people that finance big mining projects do not want to finance those type of operations. So manganese is a lot friendlier from that point of view, and I think going forward you'll see more of it. It could play a critical role. Now, just to answer your first question, that release we put out that said we could produce battery grade, that we've reduced the impurities was huge. If we couldn't have, we would have had to focus on producing more of a lower grade manganese for fertilizer, which if you look at our 43101 resource, still very significant. We're very fortunate. We might be one of the few, companies worldwide that can produce, or we're demonstrating we can produce battery grade manganese, which trades at anywhere. I've seen it as low as 1,000 right now and as high as, $2,500 to put it in perspective. But I just want to caution you on one thing. That release showed manganese sulfate on what we call like a bench level testing. So what we've done is, from a scientific point of view, we've demonstrated that we can get all the impurities out that you need to produce battery grade. And just to give you an idea, and these are just general numbers, but we started off at 1,200 parts per million with impurities. We got it down below 100. Now that's significant, and very few, I think, very few deposits can do that. Looks like on paper and in this test we can. Now the next step, and we do it at the PEA level, and we'll do it at the pre-feasible, we go and do bigger studies. And if we can duplicate those rules on a grander scale, that's really what the end producers and the people looking at offtakes are looking for. We're heading in the right direction, 100%, but there's still, work to go. And I think, if your viewers are following the company, Aftermath AAG on the TSX venture, they should look for that. Are we going to be able to do it on a grander scale? And as we demonstrate that, I think it'll directly impact our valuation. Long-winded answer to a complex question.
No, that was a great answer. So, we did talk about this, but, I've noticed that when silver starts to move up, volume on Aftermath follows suit. Do you consider yourself a silver stock, and why should investors be looking at AAG over other silver exploration projects?
Well, that's a good question. In and of itself, just if you look at us as a silver company, it's one of the, predicated on our resources. I think it's one of the more predominant silver developed companies, maybe even globally. So a lot of people that follow silver really like Aftermath because they just look at that one column on our balance sheet, not our balance sheet, but our books. They just look at the silver numbers and they realize it stacks up more than favorably with most silver companies out there. But when you factor in that deposit looks like it's going to be open pit with an exceedingly low strip ratio predicated on that comes right to surface, it's like a double whammy. It demonstrates that, well, just on the silver alone, it has a good chance of being monetized. That's what the PEA is for, to start to demonstrate that process. So just as a silver story, it's great. And the price of copper is moving up. Now, I'm a real copper bull. I think copper is going to be almost a semi-precious metal. The Western world is fighting with China for copper assets. It's the metal of electrification, and whether you're a believer in global warming or not, or the rates, one thing I think we're all in agreement of: the world is going to electrification for a variety of reasons, and we need copper, and we don't have it. If we want to meet the goals by 2030 for electrification of electric vehicles, I think we need to find 6 Escondidas, the largest copper project in the world in Chile. There's not really one in the pipeline, maybe one in Argentina called Filos. And if that comes into production, it's probably in the next 15 to 20 years. It's not coming on stream quickly. And there's a maxim in mining, we say it a lot, in the boardroom. It's that mining's about making money, not a particular commodity. Now, I know a lot of your listeners like silver and gold and precious, which is great, and we certainly have enough of that. But I always put it to people: what would you rather have, a stock that's pure gold and silver that trades at $1, and one that's gold or silver and with a base metal or an industrial metal associated with it that can trade at $5 or $10? I don't think anyone would take the former. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have the diversity that Aftermath.
Yeah, it really helps us a lot. Now there's challenges with mixing base metals and precious metals, especially in the metallurgy, and I think that's what people are looking to see. Our metallurgical work, can we separate the metals, and can we do it economically? And I think, we're confident we're heading in the right direction, and the valuations will soon realize that. And if we're in the market we think we are, all these ships are going to go up on this rising tide, and not only will we rise, we'll sail into the sunset, a very successful company.
I look forward to watching that happen.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
finally, Mike, looking ahead, what are the key priorities and objectives for Aftermath in the remainder of this year? Are there any upcoming milestones, exploration plans,
Yeah.
or strategic initiatives that investors should be looking out for?
Well, our CEO and myself, Ralph Rushton, plan on doing significant amount of marketing.
Mhm.
We're getting requests for meetings globally, and we'll be doing that for sure. But there's a good chance I think I'll get my warrants exercised, and if I do, I'll be deploying some of those to look for the engine that help form Barangila. In other words, is there a porphyry on our property? We have strong opinions on it. I'd like to drill test that. Could change the dynamics of the company overnight. And our PEA will be out before we know it. And then you can really, have me on post that and we can discuss
Mhm.
it. So I think those are the big things. And, fortunately, in good markets, our management team's had a lot of success. We've raised a lot of capital over the years, and we're well known. We'll have access to both capital and people. So I don't want to cast aspersions on any other deposits out there, but I will say this: we're large, we're potentially open pit, and we've got a management team that's done it in the past, and I believe we'll do it in the future.
Well, lots to come for you, Mike. It's
Yeah,
been a pleasure, always a pleasure working with you.
likewise.
We've covered the story for so long, and I look forward to continuing to cover it and report on the hopefully upcoming successes that you
Yeah,
have.
well,
So
let's hope next time we'll put the stock chart on and we can monitor how we're doing if the market is as I see it will be.
sounds great. Well, have a
Thanks,
good
Eric.
day, and we'll have you back on soon.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.